young woman in the early 1970s in Ireland. You've secured a good job for yourself, you're happy, but you want to get married. Getting married back in those days, if you worked in the civil service, or you were a teacher, or you had some roles in private industry, you were expected to leave your job. In 1924, Ireland introduced the marriage bar, and though not exclusive to Ireland, it was long-lasting. So for almost 5 decades, women had to leave their jobs simply because they got married. Now, this is not ancient history. This is a reality for our grandmothers and our mothers. And the inequalities of those times shape what we see today. Fast forward 50 years to 2024, and according to the CSO statistics, 62% of women have qualifications at a 3rd level. We see that since 1998, female employment has increased, or almost doubled, to 1.3 million. We also see that those in full-time employment, 42% constitute women. For part-time employment, 67% constitute women. A third of those women in part-time employment give the reason for choosing part-time employment due to care of children or care of incapacitated adults. Now, according to the Nevin Institute, Lisa Wilson, 2024, the full-time working employment model is not conducive to females who have caring roles. So what that means is that women tend to step into part-time roles, part-time employment, to suit their domestic responsibilities, or they may exit the labour market entirely. Now, as part of our research, we interviewed a number of small Irish companies, and we asked them what the barriers were to implementing equality, diversity, and inclusion, specifically for women in the workplace. So you've got to remember that in Ireland, 99% of businesses are small to medium enterprises, so the answer that we got was not that surprising. So when we heard that businesses find it costly, not just financial, but also in time, and that there seems to be a perception that there needs to be a level of expertise present within the company, then this makes it very difficult for them to implement equality, diversity, and inclusion policies. And this is one of the reasons why we see a persistent gender pay gap in Ireland. So at the moment, this is standing at 9.6%. Ireland are not doing too badly in Europe because the European average is 12.7%. Now, what the gender pay gap actually means is that men are being paid 9.6% more than women in Ireland. The European monetary equivalence is 8 full-time working weeks for women. Now, so when we look at where we're at, considering that 62% of women have 3rd level qualifications, surely this translates into senior business management roles. Well, let's have a look. The current statistics in 2023 from the Central Statistics Office shows that of all managers in Ireland, 42% of those are female. And by the way, spoiler alert, this gets worse. Okay. So what we also find is that 3 in 10 senior executives are women. 26% of chief financial officers are women. 1/4, or 1 in 4, vice president roles and senior and C-suite roles are women. And finally, less than 1 in 5 chief executive officers in large organizations in Ireland are women. So these statistics, yes, they paint a picture of progress over 40 years, but they also paint a picture of persistent barriers. And to understand why this looks like this, we need to understand how we got here. After the First World War, the British social policy introduced this ideology of the male breadwinner role. And what that meant was that men were supposed to earn a family wage. So that meant that they earned a wage to support their dependent wife and children. The Civil Service Regulation Amendment Act in 1926 meant that women were regulated to female-only roles. Now, these female-only roles were a lower salary, there was no opportunity for progression or for promotion. It meant that women were earning less than the cost of living, and it meant that they could not progress within their roles. The male breadwinner role additionally added that with the high unemployment rates after the First World War, it meant that women were relegated to the home to allow men to seize the available jobs. Now, the Civil Service Regulation Act, combined with Irish social value at that time, meant that women were expected to leave their job the day that they got married. So in 1973, what we saw was a lifting of the marriage bar. Now, what this meant was that women groups, Irish women groups, had campaigned long and hard for this. But with the marriage bar, Irish women tended not to question it that much and just thought it part of the Constitution and just thought it part of what they had to do. So groups like the Irish Housewives Association, the Irish Country Women's Association had fought long and hard, and eventually in 1973 it was lifted. Now, but it wasn't equal. It was only in 1976 that the legislation for equal pay came in. But as we can see, there is a gender pay gap that currently exists, still exists, and it is persistent. In 1977, it was only then that the marriage bar was lifted within private industry. But at no point during this process were men ever encouraged to take on extra domestic responsibility so that their wives could return to the labour market. Is it 50 years of progress, is my question. So what we currently see is that within the labour market, we have female-dominated sectors. Those female-dominated sectors are health and welfare, education, and for the most part, hospitality. We also have male-dominated sectors, which are science, technology, engineering. Now, I'm sure you can immediately see the salary disparities between those two sectors. And this is adding to the gender pay gap issue that Europe and nationally we are seeing. According to Wilson, again with the Nevin Institute in 2024, the statistics show that when children come into the picture for women, women tend to leave the labour market or go to part-time employment. And depending on the age of the children, you can see a drop of up to 20% of female participation in the labour market, as opposed to 3% for men. The gender pay gap is persistent, but not only that, the gender pay gap will translate to the gender pension gap for women. So there is a huge risk and a huge issue there at the moment. And as we saw, female representation at senior management level, as a woman ages or as she climbs the career ladder, she has less chance of moving into a senior position than that of her male counterpart. So why is this so important? Well, we are moving into a technological era, an era that is mostly driven by artificial intelligence, and this will continue to grow. So depending on whether you read recruitment articles from Indeed.com or whether you read Forbes, you will see that there is a female representation of 16 to 22% in the design, development, and implementation of artificial intelligence. Now, where is the problem in that, I hear you ask? And I'm sure that you have read articles about this. But bias is embedded in AI tools. If you think of how AI actually learns, it learns based on the data that we give it. And that data is the internet. and other pieces of digital assets. So, if the social norms was discrimination, stereotypes, prejudice, then that will all come through in AI. So the gap here of where men may represent 80% of the design and development of AI highlights a critical issue that is going to shape the technology that we are going to use on a daily basis into the future. So generations following us, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, are all going to be exposed to possibly the automation of these prejudices and stereotypes unless we speak up. Now, I just want to give you a little example here. As you may have noticed, and I am a fan of AI, by the way, but as you may have noticed, all of the images in this presentation are AI generated. So as I was working my way through this presentation, I was trying to find nice images that might depict what I was trying to say. So when I came across the statistics about female-dominated sectors, I asked AI to give me an image of 3 Irish multicultural women, one dressed as a nurse, one dressed as a teacher, and one dressed as a cleaner. And this is the image that it came back with. Okay, so please note the race. The white woman is the teacher, the black woman is the cleaner, and the Asian woman is the nurse. I put in exactly the same prompt just to see, let's give it a chance, let's see if it'll come back with something different. And this is what I got. Very similar. So this is just a very simple example of gender bias within AI. Remember, AI is learning from us, it's learning from our history, so unless we step up and speak up, we're going to continue to see this. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. So this is the one that really interested me. So I decided to ask it to give me a picture of a head of faculty of a university of approximately 50 years old. I got my middle-aged white man. Then I asked it to give me a sketch. Then I began to have a bit of fun, to be honest. Then I asked it to give me a sketch of a CEO of a global IT organization, approximately 40-year-old. And I got my middle-aged white man. So we can see immediately here that this is something that we use in daily life. So if our children and our grandchildren are using this, is it possible that they stop questioning? Is it possible that they accept that this is the norm? And is it possible that we return to being those women 50 years ago who did not question the marriage bar? Thank you.